Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Sunday, July 26th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside today, we are expecting a high of 99.8 degrees and a low of 70.9 degrees, so please make sure to stay cool and drink plenty of water if you find yourself heading outside. Coming up on the show, we are examining the reasons behind the historic surge in grocery prices across the United States, marking their sharpest increase in 50 years. We are also looking at the strategy Marvel is employing to potentially reset the Marvel Cinematic Universe brand. In addition to these primary headlines, we have a variety of other important stories to cover from around the globe today. All this and more is coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. Grocery prices are biting harder than they have in half a century, and it's changing how we shop. Our business reporter Ethan is here to break it down. Ethan, just how bad is this?
Grace, it's the most significant surge in grocery prices in 50 years. According to a collaboration between the Associated Press, the Lexington Observer, La Esquina, and Honolulu Civil Beat, the cost of food for home use in U.S. cities has climbed 33% since the beginning of 2019. WDRB and International Business Times reported the same trend. To put that in perspective, in the 7.5 years before 2019, prices rose only 6.4%.
That's a staggering jump. So what actually caused this?
Reporters describe it as a perfect storm of global and domestic factors. It starts with the coronavirus pandemic, which disrupted supply chains and drove up labor and transportation costs. WDRB describes what they call a rockets and feathers effect, where prices shot up rapidly after the pandemic but have fallen only slowly. So even as some pressures ease, shoppers aren't feeling much relief at the register.
And I imagine the weather and world events piled on too?
Exactly. Production has been hampered by droughts, specifically in the West, along with hurricanes and diseases like bird flu. Then there's geopolitical conflict. Russia's war in Ukraine disrupted oil and fertilizer supplies, and a more recent conflict involving the U.S. and Israel against Iran has further accelerated food price inflation while pushing up gasoline costs.
What about tariffs? We keep hearing that word.
Tariffs have specifically raised the cost of coffee, tomatoes, and chocolate. WDRB reports the Trump administration levied tariffs on over 60 countries under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. The justification cited failures to prohibit forced labor, though critics describe that claim as arbitrary. So it's one more layer of cost landing on everyday products.
Now, I've seen data saying wages are keeping up. Is that true?
On paper, sort of. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates that average weekly earnings for full-time workers have risen slightly faster than grocery costs since 2019. But the actual relief is marginal. Jared Bernstein of the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy, quoted by ABC News and IBT, explains that consumers still feel significant strain because costs for housing and electricity have also soared. So a small edge on groceries gets swallowed by bigger bills elsewhere.
And that pressure isn't spread evenly, is it?
Not at all. The burden falls hardest on low-income households. ABC News and IBT report that in 2024, the average American spent 12.9% of pre-tax income on food, both eating in and eating out. But for the lowest earning fifth of U.S. households, that figure jumped to 33%. To cope, data from the Urban Institute shows a rise in Americans leaning on credit cards just to cover basic grocery bills.
Using credit cards for groceries. That tells you a lot. So how are people changing what they buy?
We're seeing a record-breaking move towards store brands. The Private Label Manufacturers Association reported that store brand sales reached $282.8 billion in 2025. Shoppers are also switching where they shop. Market research from Numerator shows discounters like Aldi, Walmart, and Costco are gaining market share from traditional grocers. People are hunting for value wherever they can find it.
Are they simply buying less overall, too?
Yes, and this is telling. A study by Bain & Company and Nielsen IQ found shoppers are buying fewer items overall. That trend sharpened in February 2026, right after the escalation of the conflict with Iran. So it's not just trading down to cheaper brands, it's putting fewer things in the cart altogether.
Which items are people cutting first?
Ground beef is a big one. It reached $6.82 a pound in June, which is a 79% increase since 2019. That price has driven down demand, noticeably. People are also trimming what they see as non-essential purchases, like that daily takeout coffee. These are the small luxuries that quietly disappear when budgets tighten.
You mentioned geography matters. Where are folks hit hardest?
Hawaii is extremely vulnerable because it relies on cargo ships, so oil market spikes hit especially hard. ABC News reports inter-Iceland shipping costs have skyrocketed. Local milk has reached $9 a gallon, and Maui-grown berries have risen to $11 per pound. When fuel prices climb, island shoppers feel it almost immediately.
And on the mainland, does it vary city to city?
Quite a bit. In June, food costs in San Francisco were 6% higher year over year. Compare that to St. Louis, where the increase was only 2%. So where you live really shapes how much pain you feel. People are adapting in creative ways too. In Texas, residents are swapping name brands for Walmart's Great Value line, and shoppers in Massachusetts are using digital coupon apps to avoid pricey brand name snacks.
Let's talk about the safety net. Are more people turning to government aid?
Interestingly, it's shifting in an unexpected direction. ABC News reports that 37 million Americans were enrolled in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, as of April 2026. But that's actually a 12% decline from the previous year. IBT cites that reduction in government food aid as one factor contributing to the dip in total grocery spending.
So if aid is shrinking, where are people turning instead?
That's the concerning part. With less support from SNAP, many Americans have reported an increased reliance on food banks to meet their basic nutritional needs. So even as total grocery spending dips, it's not always a sign of relief. In many cases, it reflects people simply having less to spend and seeking help elsewhere. It paints a picture of households stretched about as thin as they can go.
A sobering look at what families are facing. Ethan, thank you for walking us through it.
My pleasure, Grace.
We're wrapping up this morning with big news out of San Diego. Marvel just laid out its future, and it's a lot. Our entertainment reporter Chloe has been digging through it all. Chloe, good morning.
Good morning, Grace. Yes, this all came out of the Marvel Studios presentation at San Diego Comic-Con yesterday, Saturday, July 25th. President and producer Kevin Feige took the stage and unveiled a wave of casting news and new film projects. According to Marvel.com, The Hour, and Yahoo Finance, the studio is calling this a, quote, brand reset, end quote. They're clearly trying to reboot interest after a rough stretch.
A reset. So Marvel thinks fans have cooled off. What's behind that?
Exactly right. The reporting points to a few problems all landing at once. Audience interest in superhero films has been waning for a while now. On top of that, there was critical disappointment over last year's Captain America: Brave New World. And a lot of observers feel the brand got diluted by simply too many Disney Plus series. So Feige used this panel to try to win people back.
Let's start with the headline for a lot of fans. There's a new Black Panther?
There is. Director Ryan Coogler officially announced Black Panther 3, and it's scheduled for release on December 15th, 2028. That's about 2.5 years from today. The film will star 32-year-old actor David Johnson as the new Black Panther. And if that name sounds familiar, he's known for his work in Industry, The Long Walk, and Alien Romulus.
And who exactly is he playing? Because that role carries a lot of history.
It really does. According to Marvel.com and USA Today, Johnson will portray the son of T'Challa, the character originally played by the late Chadwick Boseman. The plot centers on this younger character as he, quote, grows up, end quote, and, quote, comes of age, end quote. So think of him as a grown-up version of the boy we met back in 2022's Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's a generational handoff, essentially.
How did that land with the returning cast?
Warmly, from what we're hearing. Johnson was joined on stage by co-stars Letitia Wright and Winston Duke, both familiar faces from the Wakanda films. Duke later told USA Today that he, quote, approves of the choice, end quote, of Johnson for the role. That kind of blessing matters to fans who felt very protective of this franchise after Boseman's death. It signals the veterans are on board.
Now the other big casting bombshell. Ryan Gosling is joining Marvel?
He is, and this one surprised a lot of people. Marvel Studios announced that Ryan Gosling will join the MCU as Ghost Rider in a standalone film. That's scheduled for release in 2028. It'll be directed by Sean Levy, who has history with Gosling. The two worked together on Star Wars Starfighter, and Levy promoted Deadpool and Wolverine at Hall H 2 years prior.
Did Gosling say why he wanted this part?
He did, and he sounded genuinely eager. During the panel, Gosling said he had, quote, wanted to play the character for a long time, end quote. And there's a nice backstory here, too. As The Hour and Yahoo Finance noted, the film rights to Ghost Rider have reverted to Marvel from Sony. Sony released the original 2007 film starring Nicolas Cage and a sequel in 2012.
And there's a personal connection to that first film, isn't there?
There is, and it's a fun little wrinkle. That original 2007 Ghost Rider starred Gosling's partner Eva Mendes. So now Gosling himself is stepping into that same fiery role nearly 2 decades later. And it's worth stressing that the character has not yet appeared in the MCU at all. This is a completely fresh introduction, which gives Marvel room to reinvent him.
Okay, those are the leads. But I understand Hall H had even more. What about the Avengers?
Right, this is where it got loud. Avengers Doomsday is set for release on December 18th. Directors Joe and Anthony Russo appeared with a massive cast. That included Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, and Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. A trailer revealed a complicated past between Doom and the Fantastic Four.
Downey playing a villain now. What did that trailer actually tease?
It leaned into some real emotional tension. Kirby's character described Doom as a, quote, broken person, end quote, which suggests there's genuine history and hurt there. But Downey Jr. kept things light on stage. He joked that Reed and Doom were, quote, besties, end quote. That was a wink at a post-credit scene in the Fantastic Four First Steps, which showed Doom in the couple's living room with their baby.
That's quite a turn. And there's something happening with an older film, too?
Yes, and this is a clever move. Kevin Feige announced that Avengers Endgame will return to theaters on September 25th. That's just about 2 months from today. But it's not just a nostalgia play. The re-release will include brand new footage designed to link the film directly to Avengers.
Smart bridge. What about Spider-Man? I know fans always ask about him.
They do, and he's coming up fast. Spider-Man Brand New Day opens July 31st. That's this coming Friday, just days from now, and it sets up a real showdown. The film features a confrontation between Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Jon Bernthal's Punisher, and Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. That's an unusual mix of heroes and anti-heroes all colliding.
That's a heavy-hitter lineup for one movie. Now I hear the panel itself had some comedy.
It really did, and this is the part fans are already sharing online. Ryan Reynolds appeared from the audience in a, quote, gray Deadpool, end quote, costume to crash the panel. He started needling Paul Rudd, asking why Thor was crying in the previous film, and Rudd deadpanned back, quote, he's a Wrexham fan, end quote. That's a joke about the Welsh soccer club Reynolds co-owns.
So they were teasing each other. Did any real news come out of that bit?
Actually, yes, buried in the comedy. When Reynolds asked when filming for Doomsday begins, Downey Jr. responded that it was already, quote, in the can, end quote. So that tells us the movie is much further along than fans might have assumed. It's not just a title on a slide. They've apparently wrapped major production, which is a big deal for a December 18th release.
Stepping back, Chloe, does all of this actually add up to the reset Marvel wants?
That's the real question, Grace. On paper, it's an aggressive strategy. You've got 2 fresh leads in David Johnson and Ryan Gosling, a re-release engineered to build momentum and back-to-back Avengers films anchoring everything. The reporting from Marvel.com, The Hour, and Yahoo Finance frames it all as a direct answer to that superhero fatigue and the brand dilution we talked about. Whether audiences respond is something we won't know until these movies actually hit theaters.
And the timeline stretches out pretty far, doesn't it?
It does, and that's part of the ambition. Spider-Man Brand New Day arrives this week, Endgame returns in September, and Avengers...
A lot riding on it, clearly. Chloe, this was a great rundown. Thanks for breaking it all down for us this morning.
My pleasure, Grace. And for anyone heading to the theater, remember Spider-Man Brand New Day is the very next thing on the calendar, opening July 31st.
That's this Friday. We'll be watching. Thanks again, Chloe, and that wraps our coverage this morning. Here are some other headlines. Turning to the Mediterranean, things are heating up in Spain's southern Andalusia region. A forest fire in the Los Gallardos municipality of Almería province has left at least 12 people dead. It is truly a scorched earth policy that no one wanted, as the region struggles to extinguish the blaze. Moving to the Middle East, the U.S. military is putting the brakes on its aerial campaign, pausing airstrikes on Iran after nearly 2 weeks of intensifying bombing. It seems both sides are looking for an off-ramp as diplomatic talks press forward to avoid an all-out war. Iran is also attempting to keep things flowing, announcing negotiations with an Omani delegation regarding navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. However, the U.S. is still playing hardball with its naval blockade. Since resuming operations in early July, the military has redirected 12 commercial vessels and conducted 2 boardings. This included the Comoros Islands flag tanker Charminar, which was boarded and inspected in the Arabian Sea before being allowed to sail on. Not everyone was so lucky. The Mozambique flag tanker Levine was disabled in the Gulf of Oman on July 25th for ignoring warnings and violating the blockade. Meanwhile, the Houthi rebels are making waves of their own. On July 25th, they fired missiles and drones at Saudi Arabia, targeting 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea and firing 2 ballistic missiles at refineries in Yanbu. They even claimed to have closed the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Saudi Arabia's defense was a hit, as a Greek-operated Patriot battery intercepted the missiles and shot down a drone. However, smoke was seen rising from the Saudi Aramco refinery in Jizan. In a tit-for-tat exchange, the Saudi-led coalition struck the Yemeni port city of Hodeidah early Saturday. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is washing his hands of the situation, denying any involvement and calling it a case of old disputes. In other global news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is planning to touch down in Washington next week to visit President Trump. Over in India, the youth protests have finally reached a boiling point and then cooled off. Nationwide demonstrations were called off on July 26th after the government caved to demands regarding examination paper leaks and testing irregularities. The deal was struck between federal ministers and leaders of the Cockroach Janta Party. As a result, Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has been forced to clean house, submitting his resignation to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the interest of the students. That is all for these headlines. Stay tuned for more updates as they develop. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.